Hi, I want to take a few minutes to talk you through some things that you should be keeping in mind as you work on building your draft of Project 3. I'm going to talk through reminders on using signal phrases when you write about sources, on assessing your sources using the CRAP test to make sure that you're developing the strongest and best researcher ethos that you can, which will help your argument even be more persuasive. And I want to talk you through a sample proposal argument paper that I have annotated in the folder so that you can see some things to be thinking about as you build your draft this week. I've sent many of you this link on signal phrases, which are phrases or clauses or sometimes even sentences leading into a quotation. And like these indicate, sometimes you'll have the speaker's name or the author's name in that phrase. Sometimes, and you'll see an example of this in the paper I show you, you'll see the title of the source, if that source has an especially strong ethos. Sometimes you might include, like it notes here, justification for using that person as an expert. Again, showing that the sources that you have are credible and the most reliable. So I will link this page in our Week 11 folder as a reminder, and they have modeled some signal phrases and include some different verbs that you might use. It's important to use these to indicate where you're drawing from sources and differentiate that with when you are tying things together, synthesizing arguments, and making your own points in the argument. So you'll use moves like this. You also use in-text citation to do that, and I will repost the video that I sent you last week in this week's folder so that you have that as well to review. And then you also will work on building ethos in other ways. One of the ways that you'll do that, in addition to introducing your sources carefully, is just choosing the strongest sources possible. And so the third link that I'll put in this week's folder is again to the CRAP test, which helps you evaluate sources for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. You have been doing a lot of research lately, and when I've been reviewing annotated bibliographies, I see a lot of strong sources from scholarly databases or from very relevant popular sources, magazines that are within the field that you're looking at. And so it seems like there are not many issues with authority, but you do need to think very carefully about relevance, timeliness, depending on the issue that you're looking at or the topic you're looking at. Do you have the most up-to-date information? Does it matter if you have the most up-to-date information? Sometimes knowing just a little bit more about the authors, not just that you can find an author, but do they list their credentials? Is there anything else you know about the site? And what do you think about whether that is relevant or not? You might consider using multiple sources to check the accuracy of information, or like I'll point out in the paper we'll walk through in a second, explaining, does the source explain where their information comes from? Do they explain statistics? Those things are important. And then like we had to do in the rhetorical analysis, you need to understand what is the author's purpose? What are they trying to do? Because that changes or dictates the rhetorical moves they make in their own writing. So think through the questions on here. You won't build a lot of this analysis into the argument essay, but you'll want to make sure you're choosing the strongest sources in that text. Finally, I'm including in this week's folder an example of a student paper from a few semesters ago. This is an argument essay. It's a proposal argument. So the student's task was to evaluate where there was a need for something and then propose a solution to that and to explain how that proposal would be implemented. In this iteration of my class, students worked on writing collaborative essays, And that poses special challenges in terms of research work. Typically, in a collaborative essay, the research can be stronger because you have more brains working, and the writing process can have some more strengths because, again, you have a lot of ideas to bring together, but the editing and revision of those documents can take sometimes a little bit longer or a different kind of attention. So, positives and some challenges. I want to talk through in this example paper some of the things that would be relevant across whatever kind of argument you are writing for Project 3. And then I thought this would give you at least a decent example of a student paper, although again this was written for a different project and assignment. They had to respond to a need in their local community, and so they are writing about the value of having a Chipotle restaurant on campus, which sounds awesome. So I've included annotations in this essay for you. If it makes sense to you, you should think about pausing the video right now, taking a few minutes to read through this 6-page essay. The 7th page is their works cited entries. And then restart my video and walk through the annotations with me. So if that's what you'd like to do, take a moment to pause the video right now. Otherwise, just keep listening. Okay, so I made several annotations in here just for things to keep in mind as you're working on your own writing and building your drafts this week. One thing is to remember, I've said this before, I believe, but the introductions may be more than one paragraph long. This one is just one paragraph where they describe the need and think about what's at stake in this argument. Why is it valuable to make this proposal for a Chipotle? So take a look at what the directions for writing an introduction are in the outline that you're pulling from Chapter 6 to help guide you through this process. Typically, in the final sentence of the introduction, no matter how long the introduction is, so even if the introduction is a couple of paragraphs long or 3 paragraphs long, you'll have your 1-sentence claim. Reading a little bit further down, I pointed out one example of a signal phrase in here, and you can pay attention as you read through the paper for different places where they introduce authors. Typically, like I said before, an author's name would be used. Here you see the author's names in the citation. Here they use the source name, the Nutrition Journal states. That phrasing isn't the best phrasing. It might be better to say an article from the Nutrition Journal includes this information or something like that. But if you decide to use the source in a signal phrase, that would be the most valuable thing if that source granted an especially strong ethos. If the Nutrition Journal, if that's not a title that holds any water with your audience, then they won't care about that. Another thing to pay attention to in this part of the essay, and you can look for other moments where they do this well or not so well, is the use of what's called a quote sandwich. In a quote sandwich, you have a phrase or a sentence or an idea, topic sentence that introduces the idea you're going to talk about in a quote. Then you have the quote that you're actually taking from a source, and then that is followed up by an explanation or an analysis of the information presented in the quote. So right here we have an introduction sentence. Also, studies have shown that weight gain among university students can affect grades. And then here is a quote from a study. The Nutrition Journal states weight gain was negatively correlated with academic performance, i.e. the more students had gained weight during the first semester at university, the lower their first-year GPAs. Citation. And then finally an explanation. This shows how choosing the right foods can affect students' efficiency and overall their grades. If I were pressing this group to work a little bit more on this, I would need them to fill in a little bit more of the blanks. How does this show choosing the right foods can affect students' efficiency? I think they need to tell me a little bit more, but the basic setup of the quote sandwich is here. So make sure you're not just dropping ideas in from sources, but that you are introducing them carefully and explaining them thoughtfully. Another thing to pay attention to as you build your draft is to make sure that each paragraph includes a topic sentence that shows the point of the paragraph. It doesn't always need to be in the beginning of the paragraph, though most often that's where topic sentences are. Here, their topic sentence is attention to healthiness is making a wave through the campus and through the lives of many Wayne State students. And then they talk about a survey that they administered to students in their classes and in their campus clubs. A survey can be a useful kind of primary research depending on your topic. My hunch is most of you won't be doing something like conducting a survey at this point in your research process. But whether you're reporting a survey from one of your sources, and I know many of you have written in your annotated bibs about surveys that are included in those sources, it has to be thoughtfully conducted and represented in your writing. So here the statistics are explained in the paragraph. It would also be important to know what the sample size is, how many students took this survey overall. So you know, as they're talking about 64% believe this, 46% don't think about this, like is that 12 students that are surveyed? Is it 20? Is it 40? In this case, we find out in the next paragraph that it was 78 Wayne State students, which isn't a terrible sample size considering what they were researching. But being upfront about that information or reporting the information from the source that includes a survey will help the numbers make a lot more sense. Anytime you're using statistics or other survey information, make sure you explain the numbers thoughtfully. And if you come across a source that has like sort of mysterious statistics in it that aren't cited or explained, then you should be a little bit skeptical of that information. Something else to remember is to choose helpful, specific examples to make your point. So in this paragraph, one of the points that students want to make is that a lot of people think Subway is healthy, but they want to point out that not every choice at Subway is very healthy, and so they give the example of the Fritos chicken enchilada sub that has 1,160 calories and 2,340 milligrams of sodium per foot long. And then this is a good example of where they make the numbers make sense. They give us some perspective on that. This is over half the daily calories in a typical full-grown man's diet of 2,000 calories. So just one sandwich is over half the calories that you should take, way over the recommended intake of 1,500 milligrams per sodium. So really doing that number crunching and explanation for your readers is important. Remember to review carefully all of the elements required by the kind of argument you're writing. In a proposal argument, for example, it's crucial that you walk through the logistics of how the proposal will be implemented. It's not enough to just say, here's a problem, here's a solution, but you have to explain to be really convincing, like how would that solution actually be implemented. This group does this here. Likewise, you need to remember to think about counter arguments or obstacles to your arguments. No matter what kind of essay you're writing, a definition, cause and effect, evaluation, rebuttal, proposal, in all of those you need to think about counterarguments or obstacles and show that you've carefully considered many perspectives as you forward your argument. Again, reviewing your annotated bibliographies, I see that you're looking at and thinking about getting a variety of perspectives. And that's one of the reasons having a bulkier set of sources is important. That's why I'm pressing you to add 4 new sources beyond the 3 that you've used in your iSearch paper, or if you're doing a brand new topic, to be looking at like 7 sources to be really painting a picture of what this issue is about. Finally, in your draft, as you close out the essay, typical in academic essays, you'll close with a summary of your key arguments. And then depending on what the purpose of your essay is, sometimes you'll include a call to action. So if the goal is to get your audience to do something, then you will tell them what you want them to do in the conclusion of the essay. So these are just a few things to think about as you're putting your draft together this week. You'll also see the portal for the complete draft of Project 3 in the Week 11 folder, and you can upload your draft there.